The Dr. Oba Tashaka Show. Free your mind, and the rest will follow. A show for all who are on the journey to discover the truths about their identity, history, culture, politics, spirituality, and family relationships. This is a show for the Black Freedom Movement and the Black Power generation and the hip-hop generation, including Black Lives Matter and associate activists, all of whom are seeking change. Dr. Oba Tashaka and his guests are dropping knowledge and insight from his successful organizing, research, writings, and innovative thoughts, the best of which have piped into God's mind to lift you up higher and higher. To the bosses, OGs, rappers, influencers, and those looking to evolve from the constraints of misinformation and miseducation to build a foundation for personal growth, love, and mental freedom. Check out the wisdom of the OR. Yeah, that's the original revolutionary, Oba T, who inspired 1 million black men with his rousing speech at the Million Man March, and who continues to fight, write, and speak the truth. Dr. Oba Tashaka is one of the deepest deep thinkers in the world today. A quote by Dr. Asa Hilliard. Dr. Oba Tashaka, then Bill Bradley, was the best leader organizer in the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE. An endorsement from Dr. George Wiley, Associate Director of National CORE and the best organizer blacks produced in the 1970s as the organizer of the National Welfare Rights Organization. The Dr. Oba Tashaka Show. Free your mind, and the rest will follow.
Greetings. How's everybody doing? I know you haven't seen me for a while because I've been working on this book. As a guy who knows, this has been a lot of work that I really enjoyed. But I took time to come on the show today to present a film on one of our greatest revolutionaries, Sister Assata Shakur. And it's a film done where she's speaking. It's her telling her story, and it's done by the renowned filmmaker Gloria Rolando. And she's a part of the Independent Film Collective in Cuba. And so I came across this, and when I saw this, I couldn't resist it. I said, oh, yeah. So this is to honor our great revolutionary sister, in her words, Assata Shakur. And for those of you who have had the opportunity, this is her autobiography that she wrote, Assata, you know. So I'm going to do a little introduction, and then it'll be her. And then we've reconfigured this so that at the end of this, you can actually talk and make questions, you know, say whatever you want, as opposed to before, you'd have to type in your comments, you'll be able to speak. This is the film Eyes of the Rainbow. And Assata Shakur, I think for most people who watch this show know who she was. She was a leader in the Black Panther Party, Joanne Chestnut originally. and her, Assata Shakur. And this is a woman of great intelligence, wisdom, and courage. And, she's a sister that she tells her own story in her autobiography, Assata, which, by the way, this is not just an autobiography, this is a classic. And there aren't too many books that fit that. And it's a classic because of who she was, the time who she was then, and her story herself is, of course, a classic story, but it's a classic because of the way it's written. And she wrote it the way not too many writers are able to do. Instead of just telling a straight story where she starts with her birth and goes through that, she starts with the shootout that the police had with her, and she starts with her wounded and in the hospital and going through all of that, and then she does a past, future, or forward thing where she'll deal with one period and then go back to the past and then come to the future. The whole way in which she laid the book out is almost as magnificent as the story itself. It's absolutely beautiful in terms of its writing, but especially in terms of the person. Now, I have to say that I have bias here. I'm a revolutionary. And one of my favorite people, period, has been Assata Shakur. And because of her revolutionary commitment, her life, her brilliance, her courage, and because, of just who she was. And so she's been one of my favorite people, period. That's just the way it is. I was fortunate to be in Cuba in 1983, 1984 as National Vice Chair of the Black United Front, which I was one of the four founders of, with Reverend Herbert Dowtry, who was then National Chair, and Reverend Brown, who passed a few years ago. And the first time we went in 83, I told Dowtry, I said, we should not waste our time here. We should negotiate with the Cuban government. And so we entered into negotiations with the Department of the Americas. And, for a couple of days, we laid out things and got to see Cuba. But most important, we got some very important things from Cuba, one of which they gave a number of organizations free medical slots to their medical school. And one of the leaders in my organization, Pan-African People's Organization, Thabiti Mtambuzi, went to the medical school. And he was a straight A student in school. He had been a student of mine at San Francisco State, had been a head of the Associated Students, and along with his friend, Ustadi Kadiri, who was in charge of the Black Students Union, they did some good work there. So he went to Cuba and he stayed for a couple of years, but I knew it was going to be a problem for him because he's a family man, and to be away from his family too long would be hard. And sure enough, after about 2 years, he came back. It wasn't because he couldn't handle the coursework, and he mastered Spanish, which he had learned in school before, but he refreshed himself. So, but it was my pleasure to be in Cuba and to work with Reverend Herbert Dowtry and Brother Brown on this agreement with the Cuban government. And I have to say that it was a real good experience in that you're in free space. And today, Cuba is under heavy sanctions from the U.S., where there's an oil embargo and this is really rough on the Cuban people. And this government is out to bring down the government of Cuba, and they deserve all the support that we can give and that the African world can give, and that anyone who cares about freedom can give. So it was my pleasure to be in Cuba, and also in a country that had uh, stood on principles, and in the midst of the South African invasion of Angola, had sent in soldiers to fight on behalf of the Angolan people. And it's one of the few times in history that a nation has intervened in another nation to defend its independence and to fight back against an oppressive force for no other reason than principle. And a lot of Cubans went and fought, and many of them Afro-Cubans. So Assata, when she's in prison, she is able to escape. I'm not going to go into any of that because she'll tell her own story in this film. And then any questions you have at the end of this, we can discuss that. But the Black Panther Party was marked by the FBI and the state of the United States of America to be wiped out. Now, I was a victim of the counterintelligence program. A number of people were. They tried to take my life 3 times and went after me in terms of my jobs, and I was able to beat them. But the difference between what I went through and what they went through is I didn't have the whole weight of the FBI coming down either on my organization or on me. But that's what the Black Panther Party faced, and that's what Assata Shakur faced. And so that's a different kind of attack. And that's an attack that the United States didn't even reserve for Russia, that they claimed to be a Cold War enemy, which was a fake war. That's a whole other story. Russia has never been a threat to the United States. So it wasn't just that Assata Shakur faced COINTELPRO. It wasn't just that the Black Panther Party faced COINTELPRO. It faced the full weight of the FBI that was out to eradicate them. And anyone that came, within their sights received that treatment. And so the counterintelligence program, which had many goals, one of them was to assassinate any leadership that this government viewed as a threat. Malcolm X went down under COINTELPRO. So did Martin Luther King. But by the time Assata was moved on, they now had in place an operation called low intensity operations. Though I think the main strategy they used on her and the party at that point was COINTELPRO. I faced low intensity, which was a more sophisticated way of taking you out, that when they come after you, you don't see it. And so when they came after my organization, they used low intensity. And had I not been trained in it, we would have been all killed, But she came under the heavy hammer of the FBI COINTELPRO. And so she was targeted numerous times, charged with offenses she didn't commit, and was acquitted in a number of trials. And in one, the picture they had of Assata wasn't even Assata's picture. I think the FBI figured all Black people look alike and they could put anything out and charge anything and she'd go down. And so she beat a number of charges until finally they framed her and put her in prison. Assata is a woman of vision. When you read her autobiography, you'll see the critique of capitalism. You'll see the critique of imperialism. She'll talk about her family, and especially her grandmother, who was very important in her life, as grandmothers are in all our lives. They're the saving grace. John Henry Clark called them the big mamas. Big Mama has been the most important being in our lives. And while my mother was very important for me, alongside of her was my grandmother, Proud Catherine from Mississippi, black as midnight, and if anything, prettier, and knew it, and walked like she owned the world, and was poorer than a church mouse. But she had no poverty of character, no poverty as a human being. And she carried herself that way. And so Assata's most influential person in her life was her grandmother, and nourished a lot of the flame that she had. And she'll speak of her in this film. So she was a revolutionary. And revolutionaries are critical of the established order and want to overturn it. But revolutionaries are also critical of the groups in which they're in. If they have shortcomings, they'll lay them out. And Assata, in her book, The Autobiography, she has some pointed criticisms for the Black Panther Party. And that would be true of any organization you're in. None are perfect. And in her case, she could see a lot of areas for improvement. That's the nature of a revolutionary. One of the most interesting things about Assata is her eyes. Those are some interesting eyes, beautiful eyes, lovely eyes. She's seen a lot, and she went through a lot. And her passing was a real loss, but that she lived, that she made the contribution that she did to African people and to humanity was a great thing. So Eyes of the Rainbow, produced by Gloria Rolando, and I must make this statement. Anyone that watches this show knows that we take no money from any corporations or anything. We don't make a profit off this show. And I have to make it clear that this film that you're about to see, it's not being shown for profit. It's being shown to raise your consciousness, and those whose consciousness is already raised, to treat you to educational opportunity to actually see loveliness in revolutionary form. And beauty is very important in life, and the most important beauty is the beauty of character and integrity. And this woman had this all over. So we're going to start right now, and when this is over, if people want to make comments, you can.
Person that I don't know gave me the inner strength that I needed to overcome, or to be able to think about overcoming the tremendous odds that were against me, was my grandmother. She came from Wilmington, North Carolina, to see me at Yardville Prison. I was in that prison. I was put in a maximum security unit, in a cell with 2 guards in front of the cell 24 hours a day, and a cell between 2 gun towers that could train their guns directly on the cell. I was told that I was in the Yardville unit for women, even though I was the only woman, and they tried to keep me there for the rest of my life. My grandmother came to visit me there to tell me a dream, and she came with all of my family, and everybody was happy, and I'm like, what's happening with y'all? And they said, no, she had a dream, and I was like, okay. And so my grandmother's dream was that she was dressing me, that she was in an old house that she lived in when she lived in New York still, and she was putting clothes on me. I said, is that the dream? She said, that's the dream. And I said, well, was I little or big? She said, no, you were big. So I said, oh my God, the only time people dress anybody when they're grown is when they're dead. And so she said, no, I know what you're thinking, no. What this dream means is that you are going to leave this prison. I don't know when, but it's going to be much less time than you've already spent here. And, I didn't understand the dream, to be honest. It didn't make any sense to me. What does this have and wearing clothes have to do with getting out of prison? But my grandmother has always had dreams, and her dreams have always come true.
I don't know how my mother walked her trouble down. I don't know how my father stood his ground. I don't know how my people survived slavery. I do remember, that's why I believe. I don't know why the rivers overflow their veins. I don't know why the snow falls and covers the ground. I don't know why the hurricane sweeps through the land every now and then. Standing in a rainstorm, I believe.
Many people say that injustice and hunger are walking freely all over the universe, and that nature is seeking a response. The moon and the sun once asked the earth, where are the women warriors? The earth responded, they have been scattered all over the world, but they can always be identified by the beauty in their eyes, which reflects the dignity and the greatness of the rainbow. Nevertheless, continued the earth, they suffer greatly, often much more than what is commonly endured by a human being. Why? Then the moon and the sun responded energetically. We have to look for them. We have to bring them together. Because it is only women warriors who know how to survive in the midst of so much suffering, struggling.
I come from a tradition of women maroons, cimarrons, who didn't just try to escape from oppression, but were totally mind, body, spirit committed to resisting and committed to winning, whether was Nanny in Jamaica, who fought against the enslavers, whether it was Harriet Tubman, who helped to free more than 700 slaves. I think I come from a very strong history, and I simply wanted to live on this planet and to continue that tradition and to try in my little way to make my ancestors proud. I want to live in a country where freedom means something. I really didn't know what to expect. I had these like crazy images because even though I considered myself a socialist, I considered myself someone who really identified with the Cuban Revolution, I had been raised on a diet of anti-communism. And so I came here and I was like expecting, first of all, everybody to look like Fidel. I thought everybody was going to wear green fatigues and stuff. It was just like a crazy thing. And I thought people would be talking like the revolution. You know what I mean? I just had these crazy stereotypes. And then when I came, it was like, wow, a whole new world. The first thing that hit me was, just how beautiful the nature is here. Whether it's the sea, whether it's the plants. This is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life. Everything is so lush, so green, so ripe. And, just the climate made me immediately feel at home. I was very much impressed by the healthcare system, by the education system, by the sports teams, by all of the many things that the revolution has been able to accomplish. What has impressed me most has been how people live, just how people relate to each other. I mean, I come from a society that is literally at war with itself. I didn't even know how to react to people when I came here. People would just come off the street and start talking to me, and I would immediately get paranoid. What do they want? It was very difficult for me to realize, somebody would say, what time is it? Or where did you buy that? Because Cubans will come up to you and just talk to you, whether you were in a store or on a line, and that was something very different, that human contact. I was born in 1947 in New York City. I lived with my mother and my aunt and my grandparents in a house in Queens, New York, in Jamaica, Queens. And I stayed there until I was about 3 or something. And I went with my grandparents to live in Wilmington, North Carolina. my grandparents decided to go back to Wilmington because Wilmington was their home, and because also they wanted to open up a small business. They had saved all their money hoping to go back to Wilmington, and they did go back, and they opened up a small business on the beach by the sea. They opened the business because at that time Wilmington was completely segregated. Well, the South was just totally segregated. It was apartheid. What that meant was that there were black schools. For example, I went to a all-black school, the Gregory School. There were the black library. You know, we grew up with that kind of reality of not voluntarily living like that, not voluntarily accepting apartheid, but understanding that the price of stepping out or standing up alone could possibly be death. From slavery, the idea of a political prisoner started. We were political prisoners brought here from Africa. We were political prisoners in the in order to keep colonialism fat, in order to keep the plantation owners that profited from our sweat and labors, we were kidnapped and brought here as prisoners, and our status hasn't changed, whether it's on the streets. We're prisoners of the ghettos in Harlem. We're prisoners in small tenements. We're prisoners of urine-smelling hallways. And I mean, I've always been a prisoner. I've never been free in my life. I don't know what freedom means. Sitting in this place on this plantation, you know, you think back to what those slaves had to deal with, and that probably the only beauty that they saw was the human beauty between them and the beauty of the sky and of the trees and of the grass. And I think that probably helped them to survive, to stay alive internally, spiritually. Growing up, you know, by the sea and seeing the beauty of this planet, it was hard not to really have a profound respect for this planet, for nature. My grandmother, she could not stand people throwing paper on the floor. I mean, she could not take that. That was a crime for her, because and then, you know, she would say, look at these grown people, you know, what's wrong with their hands? They can't hold the paper until they find a trash can, you know. I think that how we live in this earth is very much tied to how we think about nature. And so I think that it's important for African people and all people who appreciate living to make sure that our children and our grandchildren have a planet that is livable. And that means to make very serious changes in the order of the priorities and the politics that exist today.
Oh,
mariposa, maribo, yeah, maribo. 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 Mariposa, maribo. Mariposa, maribo. Mariposa, maribo, yeah, maribo. Being African is not a matter of race. It's a matter of a history, of a culture, of a struggle of a people. And the important thing is to be able to remember that, not to be disassociated from that, not to be torn from that, to carry that on into the future and to carry that on in changing the future. One of the most shocking things when I came to Cuba was just how African Cuba is. I mean, I didn't realize that there were this whole huge number of African people on this island. I had no idea, because the projection is very different, how you are taught to think about Cuba in the U.S. media. So I was really shocked. And then I began to be exposed to the culture, and the culture is so rich, whether it's in dance, whether it's music. It's so African. There's the rhythm, there's the drums, I began to be aware of just how much they had robbed us in the United States, because the slavery, the kind of slavery that existed here was terrible, and equally as terrible in the United States, but people were able to keep their religions, their gods, their piece of language. They were able to maintain dances, rituals that were directly from Africa. And for the first time in my life, I became acquainted with the Orishas, with Yemaya, Shango, Obatala, and I felt like, wow, I was reclaiming just another piece that was stolen from us. Yagumagarere, Abata, Yagumagarere, Alatariye. Pero si va carere, moro coro como temero, modena que momo te mata, moro coro como temero, modena que momo te mata, otani mama tara. Eroni mamarora, la we de loro seriki loro nga peleya, saka que me sao kuroba,
Boba ena ye mata ke yana yo. Moro moro como temero. Modena ye modena na. Moro moro como temero. Modena ye modena na. Modani mama tara. Eloni mama lora. Kawe penolu seriki. Seriki loru apelea. Sakaki misa okuroba. Obalena ye mata ke yana yana eri omo.
The Black Panther Party came under the guns of the FBI, as did all of the Black Liberation Movement. It didn't matter what positions you took. It mattered that people related to those positions, that people understood what you were saying, that people supported you. And I think that when J. Edgar Hoover and those who control the United States government understood how many young people looked to the party for leadership, how many young people were inspired by the Black Panther Party, how many young people supported the activities of the Black Panther Party. And it was, people, just ordinary street people, working people, mothers, grandmothers who would come to the office and bring clothes, come to the office and make donations. So the government just perceived us as a threat because they understood that we were serious, they understood we were telling the truth, and they understood also that we were becoming a much more sophisticated opposition. We were not just the piece of pie opposition, but that we wanted a real structural change in the United States. And so we took very clear positions. We opposed the United States government intervention in Vietnam. We opposed the blockade against Cuba and all of the other U.S. policies that were hostile to the Cuban Revolution. We opposed the United States policies of supporting apartheid in South Africa. We opposed all of the U.S. government's imperialist policies against all progressive people's struggles. By the 1960s, the end of the 1960s, the Black Liberation Movement became the main target of the counterintelligence program. And what they did was to try to neutralize all of our leaders, to prevent young people from coming together and uniting. And so what they did is try to pit organization against organization. They tried to pit leaders in the same organizations against each other. In New York, where I was, what they did was they arrested in, I think it was 1967, 1968, I'm not very clear on the date, I don't remember it at this moment. They arrested on charges of conspiracy 21 of our most effective activists, of our most effective leaders. As a movement, have to concentrate a lot of our energies on trying to liberate our imprisoned comrades. Even though they were given bail, the bail was $100,000 apiece. And only a few of them we were able to bail out. I think that we cannot look at the Black Panther Party in the past. We cannot look at the Black Liberation Movement as something in the past. African people are still not free, and there are still many, many political prisoners in the United States. It is time for us to demand total immediate amnesty for all political prisoners and prisoners of war. If we do not take ourselves seriously, if we do not take our movement seriously, then we will have to hang our heads in front of our ancestors.
Baba Ochosi, Ayelota, Omolote. Ochosi, Ayelota, Omolote. Baba Ochosi, Omayelota, Omelote. Ochosi, Ayelota, Omolote. Wole, wole. Ote mata, oke, oke. Iwole. Ote mata, oke, oke. Wole, wole. Ote mata, oke, oke. Iwole. Ote mata, oke, oke. Yotosi, Ayelota, Omolote. Ochosi, Ayelota, Omolote. Baba Ochosi, Omayelota, Omelote. Ochosi, Ayelota, Omolote. Yambele inoro, te mata corona. 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 De pao te mata. Iguara, ay yo te mata. Iguara, y de pao te mata. Iguara, ay yo te mata. Iguara, ay yo te mata. Iguara, y de pao te mata. Iguara, ay yo te mata. Iguara, y de pao te mata. Iguara, ay yo te mata. Iguara, y de pao te mata. Iguara, y de pao te mata. Iguara, ay yo te mata. Iguara, y de pao.
Where I was kept in a room, isolated for something like 4 or 5 days. I was beaten, tortured. It was a hellish experience. No one was permitted to see me. My aunt, who is also my lawyer, Evelyn Williams, had to get a court order for her and my mother and my sister to come and see me. I was in prison altogether 6.5 years. I spent more than 2.5 years in solitary confinement. Much of that was in men's prisons. In other words, I was the only woman. Even though they say that there are no political prisoners in the United States, I was kept in solitary confinement, kept in men's prisons because of my political beliefs. So you figure that one out. What it was prison? Prison was hell. It was a new kind of plantation. I feel like a maroon woman. I feel like an escaped slave, because what I saw in the United States in those prisons was slavery. It was black people with chains in cells. It was just poor people, just stepped on and smashed. I'll never forget what I saw. I'll never forget what I've lived through. I'll never forget what my people have lived through. We started to, to feel tender toward each other. We started to feel an attraction, to feel like human beings again, I guess is the word for it. And the subject of sex came up, and we thought about it, and we talked about it. And it was really heavy. It was a heavy, heavy thing because, I didn't know how to feel. Because so much that was around us was like slavery. It was like very clear they were out to wipe us out. And it was real. It wasn't any fantasy, wasn't any joke. They were out to take our heads. And, you know, I felt like a slave. I'm sure he must have felt just like a slave. And we said, well, how could we even think about bringing a child into this world? But then what other world is there to bring a child in? I mean, the world is a terrible place. And, you know, then I thought about my mother, my grandmother, my great-great-great-grandmothers, and what they must have thought about as slaves, bringing life into this world. And, you know, we just decided that we were going to live. You know, we were going to live, we're going to struggle, and we're not going to kill our own hopes. We're not going to kill our own life. We're not going to kill our right to live. And so we just decided to be human beings, to be people. In spite of all the people that were trying to squash us down and all the forces that were trying to dehumanize us, we decided to be human. The day before it was time to escape, I called my grandmother, and I couldn't call her, you know, and say, I'm getting ready to escape. And so she said, I want to tell you something. Are you listening to me? Yes, grandmother. I don't want you to get used to that place. Don't get accustomed to that place. Do you hear me? Yes, grandmother. Are you sure you hear me? Yes, grandmother. I do not want you getting used to that place. Do you hear me? Yes, grandmother. And so when I hung up the phone, it was like a sign. It was like, you know, my grandmother knew. It was like everything was ready to go, and everything went fine. I think that the only way that we're going to realize freedom, justice, equality, decent living for people is if there's a complete change. Everything has got to be turned around, and that's a revolution. A
complete you.
Separation has been very hard on my family. I'm sure in other eras, I don't know, after slavery, people went around looking for their family, looking for the marks that they put on their children. So I'm sure there's a lot about my family's separation and the pain that, I don't know, whether it's in the coast of Africa or the coast of some island in the Caribbean or in the United States. Separation is a real part of being African in the Americas, being slaves or ex-slaves. In my own case, prison has meant separation, exile has meant separation, and, well, I'm going to be real right now because I can't be any other way. Today, my mother died. And I didn't know if I could do this, but since I didn't have anything else to do, and I figured this was the best homage I could pay to my mother, is to try to carry on her tradition, what she passed down to me, what my grandmother passed down to her, and what their foremothers passed down to them. I hope that I can live up to my mother's example, and I hope I can live up to my ancestors' expectation of me, because I really believe that I have a duty to all those who have come before me, to all those who lie at the bottom of the ocean, to all those who lost their lives, whether it's in the cane fields or the cotton fields or, hanging off some tree, to continue this struggle and to continue to love and to continue to believe and to continue to try to be human, to be giving, to be loving.
Fight while others celebrate. It is only they who see the dreadful colors of suffering. It is only they who perceive where the intense splendor of victory is to be found. Because warrior women are the eyes of the rainbow, the eyes of the rainbow, the eyes of the rainbow.
My name is Assata Olugbala Shakur. Assata means she who struggles. Olugbala means for the people, and Shakur means the thankful. It is a name that I took to carry on the name of Zaid Malik Shakur in honor of his family and in honor of the forces of beauty and good on this earth, which I'm very grateful for. That is my name.
Snow falls and covers the ground. I don't know why the hurricane sweeps through the land every now and then. Standing in a rainstorm, I believe. I don't know why the angels woke me up in the morning tune.
Well, well. This was a beautiful presentation of a great woman. She said that she wanted to make her people proud and her family proud. She did more than that. She talked about revolution being total change, and that is certainly correct. She identified herself with the Maroon tradition, which is the tradition of Africans who enslaved in the Western Hemisphere, including the United States, Cuba, Haiti, Brazil, Jamaica, other places. Those Africans who could escape enslavement and would go to the mountains or go somewhere where they could be removed from whites and continued the culture of Africa and the culture of resistance. And the Haitian Revolution was an outgrowth of that Maroon tradition that then translated into a successful slave rebellion, the only successful one on the planet Earth. She talked about being a warrior woman and how she comes from that tradition. The African woman is the strongest woman on the planet. And that's because she comes out of a tradition of power and freedom that I've discussed many times on this show, of male-female equal empowerment, where there were no constraints on her for over 260,000 years. No other women have that tradition. And that tradition is strong among African women today. When I say African, I'm referring to Black women all over the world. And a result of that, we see that the most conscious sector in our community are our women. And as my good friend Candy Solowazi says, and many others I've heard say the same thing, it's the African woman that makes things happen. And the first thing it made happen was civilization, a civilization of freedom. So what Assata was saying that she wants to see brought back through revolutionary struggle is a history that we experienced for the longest period in historical time, the Kung period of civilization that lasted 260,000 years, 250 in the hunter-gatherer stage, and then continued on after that. And with the coming of oppression, it's those traditions that our people have drawn from. And so when she spoke of making her people proud, it was by drawing from the best of our past, and she represents that in magnificent way. And she talked about beauty. And that's a part of what freedom is, beautiful. And if you think it only comes when the just society is created, it comes whenever you free your mind, whenever you free your spirit. When you go back to the state of freedom that exists inside your soul, then you're experiencing it. Even though the society is not yet free, you are. And she was that free spirit. You saw a lot in this film on Yoruba culture. And one reason that African culture could survive on that level in places like Haiti, in places like Cuba, in places like Brazil, is that those countries were Catholic countries. And in those Catholic countries, the Orishas are the great spirits. And the Orisha that rules me is Obatola. When I say rules me, they don't control me. It just simply means that that's the essence of my nature. Those Orishas, and Orishas could be men or women who lived on earth and lived such a good life over time. After their death, they could be deified to a very high spiritual level, or they could be beings that never came to earth, great spiritual powers. And so you saw that running throughout this film was Yoruba culture. And that's a very strong culture in the Western Hemisphere among African people. So she said when she came back to Cuba, she was surprised to see a number of things, and one of which was a manifestation of African culture everywhere. And it's a culture that you have to revive and you have to draw from and you have to experience and respect. She talked about her grandmother and her dreams and how her dreams were never inaccurate, and about the visit in prison when she related the dream, and how her grandmother's dreams were never wrong. And in the Yoruba culture, it's divination where this can be brought up. But in all people's lives, it's your dreams, it's the intuitive powers that you have that reside most strongly in the female and most strongly within men in the feminine principle that derives from the moon and derives from, in astrology, all of the feminine signs, and in the universe through the feminine or mother power. And so when she talked about being an African woman warrior, it's drawing from that. And the strongest thing we have in our culture is our spirituality. And you could see that. And it's in her. And now she's in heaven. She's with the great ancestors, with Malcolm, Coretta Scott King, Fannie Lou Hamer, all the great ones. She's there. And so it's an honor. It's a great privilege that Africans in America would have a daughter so beautiful in spirit, physically as well. A lovely lady, a non-compromising revolutionary. And yes, they put $1 million reward on her, but they couldn't bring her back. Somehow America thinks that if they can lay false charges on you and everything else, then you're supposed to come and face the music. Hell, if she could have got out of the country before the trial, that would have even been better. Fewer years in prison. So, Assata Shakur, a woman of struggle, who we were privileged to have in our presence during a magnificent lifetime of resistance. And we should draw from that lesson. And to Assata, who I know is listening right now, we love you. I have to say that you've always been special in my heart in many different ways. And though I never met you, I know your spirit. It's a non-compromising spirit of revolution, a non-compromising spirit of humanity, a non-compromising spirit of love. And so we treasure the beautiful path that you took in life. We're sorry for the pain that you had to experience, but you rendered pain to the empire, to this corrupt system that is stepping on people all over the world, sucking their blood like vampires. And so, to the African woman, to all our mothers and grandmothers, wives, daughters, aunties, and just sisters at large, you're the most precious among us. So what I want to do now is give anyone a chance, because I've been told that Cinnabar, who does the programming here, he set us up so if someone wants to say something, they can. So let me see, first of all, what these comments are here. And if someone wants to say something, you can. Okay. Africa, a free cost spirit, is a term coined by Africa Bina. I am African. Okay. So does anybody have any comments they want to make? Questions or statements they want to make? See these comments that people were making here. Any comments? Okay. Thanks, Wolf Manlu. Just when I'm bearing down on this book, I haven't been able to come on, but I'll be on pretty soon. Sorry to see your eyesight's compromised. Work on that. Let's see if there's anything else here. See all this inner talking here. Yeah, in the case of Cuba, we need to do everything we can to support the Cuban people and to oppose what the U.S. government is doing. So if you have organizations in your community that are sending things to the Cuban people, send it. Any way we can show opposition to what this government is doing. And they're doing the same thing to us here. Let's see if there's anything here. Okay, that's it. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I want to say to the Cuban filmmaker Gloria Rolando, you did a beautiful job, and we appreciate the work. And Assata up there in heaven, I already know God's blessed you, and I know you've got a whole lot of stuff to do. So we look forward to that work and all the other great ancestors in heaven who are doing their work while we do ours on earth. So let Assata be a lesson for us, an example for us that we should be waking, working in our dreams, whatever we do, put our face, our minds, our thoughts, our actions on one thing: freedom. And yeah, it's true, none of us will be free until Africa is free. But just as Cuba is free, you can't wait for that to strike your blows for freedom. And of course, the biggest blow is under the banner of Pan-Africanism, which is one Africa. And there's plenty of propaganda out there now coming from some of these brainwashed right-wing supported groups such as ADOS, who, in attacking Africa, they also attack Pan-Africanism, and who somehow want to create a fictitious identity that we were born on a plantation. Please give me a break. So I just want to say to everyone here, I know you love this. Tell people to watch this. Also tell them to register, because now the right wing and the .com people have, particularly Silicon Valley, has lined up heavily with Trump. And so since Trump's election, the algorithms have been set so that there's hardly no growth on any conscious show. And we reached the 10,000 subscriber mark the beginning of the year, or the end of last year. And since then, we picked up only 100 new subscribers. That doesn't mean only 100 new people who are interested, but 100 new whose numbers are allowed to come through. So tell your friends and everybody else to tune in. And I just want to say also, finally, the book I've been working on in Ugawa has been really helpful in more ways that I can mention. With this has been a very interesting journey. It's a 30 plus year, actually 31-year project. The title of the book, which now is, because I'm taking a chapter out and making it into a separate book on the 6-fold stages to mental freedom. So the actual size of the book so far is about 600 pages, but it's not the size, it's the content. And it's been a spiritual journey in that a lot of intuitive stuff. Every day I write, I'm coming up with new stuff. So the title of the book is Seventh Sodaya Twinlinealism: Educational Systems that Open Your Eyes to See Just Societies and How to Be Free. That's the title of the book. And it's just as Assata said that revolution is total change, that's what this is about. This is providing a paradigm or model for a just society that will replace this one. But you don't have to wait 100 years for that. This is about how you can apply it to change yourself today, change your families, change your communities, change the society you're in, change the continent of Africa, change the world. So this has been, all revolutionaries are about justice and just societies. And so this is what this is about. The book starts with the vision of the just society. I don't start with the problem. You don't hear me using the term white supremacy because they're going down. You hear me? They're in decline. And that's because new power centers are arising in the world, and transformations are occurring throughout the world. And if they don't happen, this planet will become uninhabitable. That's how serious this is. So the first part of the book is on just society model. And I have a particular way to go through it. You have to read the book to get it. The second is on the problem. And it's a new history of the Aryan that you call the European. It's a new history. It's accurate because, my stuff is factually based. But I'm thankful to God for having given me the key that came through the book, Return to the African Mother Principle of Male and Female Equality. And then I'm thankful for God for having given me the key to understanding the forces and particularly the consequences of the attacks on our community in leading to a choice between two cultures. Those words are God's words. Twinlineal is my term for what God gave me, which was the formula for just societies that define how the longest living civilization in the world that lasted for 250,000 years in the hunter-gatherer stage and another 10,000 starting with the birth of Kemet, 10,000 BC, which when I finish this show, I'm going back because right now I'm touching this book up to make it right. And I'm dealing with the founders of the Society of Kemet, the Anu, which I've covered in previous shows, but I'm not repeating that. I've got new insights. And so this book is drawing from empirical experience and data, but visions that have a 260,000 year footprint that has been ignored in the history books. So once this is finished, the shows will start, because every day I've been writing, working out, writing, and having a lovely life with my wife and, you know, living a lovely life. Every day for me, it's happy. That's been the way it's been since I woke up. Happy. Even when I'm facing the guns of the CIA and FBI, I'm happy. Because, by the way, I respect the martyrs, but I don't plan to be one. You ain't having no holidays based on me getting shot or killed, I hope. So far, I've been able to prevent that from happening. So for me, every day is pure pleasure. Working for my people. And to have seen, though I never met her personally, Assata Shakur, she's like the jewel in the crown. She's like the icing on the cake. Talk about beauty. My goodness, Assata. Hey, lady, I know you're using your time well in heaven with all the other great ones. So I hope you enjoyed this. Love you all. Until the next time. And by the way, I have been real bad in getting the books out that people have ordered because I've been focused on this book. So every person that gets a late book will also get an additional one. You know, that's to say, I'm sorry. And this is to, you know, at least give you something extra. And they will be coming out soon. But I've just put a lot of stuff on hold, you know, focusing on this. So love you all. Hotep, until the next time. And Wolf Manlu, glad to see you, and look after your health. Hotep.